We must avoid autopilot at all cost, and we must avoid the situations that by nature breed autopilot. And for an example, we have the basic interaction with another human being. We have the, how are you doing? Good. How are you? Good. Now, both these people could be on their way to commit suicide, and this would not change the nature of this conversation. This is a conversation that breeds autopilot. It breeds not thinking. It breeds herd-like activities where you say what you're supposed to say, not what you want to say. And it almost feels taboo to tell someone how you're really doing when they ask, how are you? I once heard that if you want to know how someone's really doing in this day and age, you have to ask them twice. You have to say, how are you doing? And they'll say good. And then you say, no, how are you doing? Really? And then I bet you, I've never actually done this, but I bet you if you did, the person would pause. The superficialness of the greeting would go away. And they'd actually think, be like, I'm actually doing really good. This and this happened and, I'm feeling good. Or they'd be like, I'm actually struggling. This and this is going on and it's hard. But typically, from a first, how are you doing, you do not get this. It is something that breeds superficial autopilot. And I think we need to avoid these situations at all costs because they breed bad habits. They breed, say if you're in the creative pursuit, which is kind of my main point for making this video, is it breeds, instead of saying your truth, speaking your mind, being, vulnerable, speaking your truth no matter the consequences, you have a habit of going to, what does society want me to say? What do I think this person wants me to say right now? What, and a lot of this may go down subconsciously. You may play off of social cues, you may play off of body nature, and you say, this person seems like they're in a rush. I won't really I won't give the long form answer like I want to give. Or this person seems like they really want to have a conversation. Maybe I'll try to say something deeper, and, you know, asking how you're doing twice, I think would in itself breed the latter to come out of people. And I think for the creative pursuit, you have to truly be yourself. You have to be self-reliant. You have to, Ralph Waldo Emerson says that imitation is suicide in his essay Self-Reliant. I'm pretty sure. I haven't read it in a long time, but I think that's where I read that. And it truly is. Name one of the greatest to ever do it in any field. They were authentic. They were truly authentic their self. They were truly authentic to their self. They were not imitating somebody else. They weren't going through the motions of what they're supposed to do. They weren't doing what the rest of the people do, just a little bit better. They brought a completely new style. They teared down foundations and built new foundations. They were misunderstood. And as Ralph Waldo Emerson also says in Self Reliance, to be great is to be misunderstood. And to be your true authentic self so often is to be misunderstood by many, but to also be seen as great by many. You'll become one of those characters that is loved or hated. And in life, I think that is the goal because obviously we all want everyone to love us and, we want to have no controversial opinions and this, that, and the other. But that's just not the nature of human society, of humanity. That's just not the nature of it. The nature of it is you're either no one really loves you, but no one really hates you, or people really love you and people really hate you. And if you're speaking your truth, if you're truly great, you will obtain the latter. And all the greats, all the greats, all the ones we talk about today were misunderstood in their time. Jesus, for spreading love and light, was crucified. I think it was Galileo. I think he was killed. Um, Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar may not have been the best man. I can't really speak on Julius Caesar too much, but I do know that after Julius Caesar's death, he was almost idolized by the Roman Empire because the emperors after Caesar were named Caesar. You became Caesar after the death of a tyrant. It seems kind of weird. And I read the other day that Brutus, supposedly the monarch hero of Rome who saved them from the tyranny of Julius Caesar, once sacked a town because they couldn't pay back an interest of 40% that he lent them, which is not a virtuous action. 40% interest is absurd. And to expect a poor village that you had to lend money, pay it back, is, I don't know if it's foolish or cruel or both. But my main point is that to be great is to be misunderstood. And I'm not saying Julius Caesar was a great man, but after his time, he seemed to become idolized. He seemed to become Caesar. And there's many others. The Seneca was exiled and told to kill himself by Nero. Epictetus was exiled. Marcus Aurelius said that, even there will be people who welcome the day that you die. Pericles, the great philosopher of Athens during the Peloponnesian War, his people turned on him because he preached moderation and preached not to attack Sparta. And they attacked Sparta and didn't listen to Pericles, and that's why Athens lost the war. And he was exiled and ostracized. Socrates was condemned to death for speaking his truth, for spreading wisdom and knowledge. I mean, the list goes on. To be great is to truly be misunderstood. And to not speak your truth, to be afraid, to not be vulnerable. I heard recently Chris Williamson and Matthew McConaughey podcast that they had. They, I think Chris defined vulnerable as speaking your truth regardless of the consequences. And by that definition, we truly do need to be vulnerable because that's the only way you become great. That's the only way you become your true self. If you do not try to become your true self, if you do not get off autopilot and say what other people want you to say, you'll only ever be second best. And second best is never great. If you try to imitate, it is suicide, and you will never be the best because whoever you are trying to imitate, whatever ideal you are trying to imitate, will always be better than you. You'll always be dwarfed by that which you are not. And you will always be that which you are if you just allow yourself to and get off of autopilot. And I know I brought the notion that, we should speak our truth and, how are you doing? Good, how are you? Things like that nature. I'm not saying we need to, every time someone asks how we're doing, give them a full list of our life and, all that things. I mean, I actually detest small talk. So I usually just say good just so I don't have to talk um, in a superficial manner with somebody. But it was morely an example to show you how we do go on autopilot. And sometimes someone asks us a deep question and we just laugh and we just walk away. And it's just, society just breeds it. And I'm not saying this is always bad. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this. But I'm saying you should notice it and notice how society tries to nullify your vulnerable true self. And there's a time and a place to speak your truth, but never allow yourself to be superficial in your mind. Never allow yourself to be superficial in your creative pursuit that you are pursuing, because true creativity doesn't care for the opinions of others. True creativity doesn't say, what do my fans like? Because that's when you start becoming, you're just catering to the crowd. You aren't being your true self and you aren't creating true art at that point. You're more of a businessman trying to please a certain notion or trying to provide a product that is in need when so many people don't even know what they need. That's what the true artist does. The true artist brings into the world the things that people didn't even know they needed. Things people didn't know they were starving for. That's what the true artist does. Whether it's song, whether it's painting, whether it's philosophy, liter, liter, sorry, literature. It started off in service to avoid autopilot, but I think it should be better looked at as to truly be your authentic self. And when in your creative pursuit, be yourself unapologetically. And to understand that to be misunderstood is to be great. And if you are being misunderstood and people are starting to love you and people are starting to hate you, unfortunately, you're going on the right path. And I say unfortunately because we obviously all want people to see our point of views and we want our message to bring light to everyone. But that's simply not the case. The man who just wanted to spread love, light, and kindness was crucified. So, how do you think the world is going to treat you?